Hello, my name is Ryan. I'm going to be painting, and I'm going to be chatting about a few things. Just watched this awesome interview on Al Jazeera English. What's his name? Chris Hedges, I think. Is that it? Well, I'll link it. It's fascinating. He's. Let me verify that that was his name. Yeah, Chris Hedges. Fascinating interview. Kind of goes over in detail like things that I've already kind of touched on as far as like both parties being essentially the same party. Just he goes into more in depth. Funny, I had a comment on my AOC support video that said something about the Democratic Party being the party of racism, and this interview kind of like starts off that way, and I was like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this because I'm curious. I'm always curious because that's a viewpoint that I don't normally hear, definitely don't normally hear. And I highly encourage it because, like, at the end of the day, his viewpoint's spot on. And the whole thing that he was saying as far as the Democratic Party being the party of racism, it's because they're the party of corporatism and capitalism. It's like we kind of get misguided sometimes as far as our perceptions there. And like the way he was describing it was Republicans are the party of oligarchs and Democrats are the party of corporations. So anything that creates division and individualism and divide and promotes consumerism is kind of their responsibility because they don't necessarily address the root causes. They do things that dance around it and seems to cause more confusion, which, okay, I agree. And Republicans, they want to just bring in a ruling class. They don't care about us. They actually thrive off the chaos and could care less. If anything, just the being distracted by racism works for them. I mean, they definitely are currently the most racist party that, or at least the current ones in charge. Because, like, honestly, I don't even view them as Republicans. Like, I don't know. I remember Republicans growing up, like, not being that way, you know? Like, some of them, but, like, not like this. This is just a whole different disgusting breed of fascism. So in the interview, he kind of goes into depth on that, which is, yeah, I highly encourage it. And since I'm going to just be posting it to somebody who actually can speak on it better than I am, I'm also going to post a link to how Idiocracy became reality. I was watching that earlier, and it was basically saying how people rely on somebody else to know so they can kind of do that and then feel comfortable that somebody knows what they're doing, what they're talking about. I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was fun. I don't know what I'm doing with this. I've been on this like kind of like rectangly kick. I kind of want to incorporate it with the polka dots. So I think I'm going to start here. But yeah, another thing that really got me on, kept me listening to Chris Hedges was when he started talking about how it's basically back in the early 90s, both Republicans and Democrats essentially became the same party. He doesn't go too in depth into it, but enough to where you go like, okay, that gives me some meat to at least look into, and I appreciate that. So to the guy that left the comment on the AOC video, that's why I didn't initially respond. Like I did in like kind of contemplating about it as far as with the actual video and me talking, but I didn't want to be dismissive, because when anybody holds a viewpoint that is just clearly like, or at least feels completely different than your own, you kind of owe it to yourself to look into it a bit before trying to initiate any sort of conversation. Because I feel like if it's enough for somebody to truly believe it, there's probably a grain of truth somewhere in there. And I feel like it's just all of our duties to figure out what that is before really responding. You know? But I do know that Chris Hedges interview, the way it starts off, if you are somebody who is finding it difficult to listen to somebody who might have an opposing viewpoint, it's going to be hard to listen to it. Because it starts off feeling like he's going to be completely on a side that you don't agree with, which is further from the truth. It's more of like he's just talking about the real uncomfortable truth. Nobody's actually addressing the root cause. They're allowing the system to continue because it benefits somebody. Like, my personal viewpoint is, since I've been able to vote, it's been more and more apparent every voting cycle that Republicans and Democrats are on the same team, period. It's just that that's the reality. The only difference is Republicans like to use force and don't really care how it affects everybody in the working class and the people who don't make as much as them. And Democrats at least try to use some lube. But at the end of the day, both sides just kind of bend us all over. And they tell you lies to get in office, which that whole egg thing, that was probably the funniest one, because it's one of the more like obvious, like you don't really have that much control over it due to the current circumstances, and can't promise to bring down prices on something that you know that your policies are going to directly inflate. Which just points to politicians lie. They find something like, what do people buy at the grocery store that they're seeing it constantly escalate in price that's just kind of starting to hit home? How about we talk on that? We make them believe that we're going to do what we can to bring your prices down so you can actually have more money to do what you want, to be more distracted. And then they get off and say, fuck you. Thought you knew. And I mean, really, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just optimistic in people's ability to see through shit, but then current events happen. Makes me rethink it. This is going to be interesting. Okay. I got a couple more minutes before I need to go put my legs up and alleviate the lower back. Ugh, so obnoxious. I had to do some errands yesterday, go get my haircut and stuff. And I kind of planned it out to only be gone for about an hour, maybe hour and a half at the most. And then I ended up using up like all my time of being able to use my back, whether it be sitting in a spot or driving. Suck balls. On two fronts. Because on one, I've been rehabbing my back and resting. And, you can't just do that. You have to occasionally test it to see, like, is it actually healing? Is it more of a permanent thing? It's like, I feel like pretty good. I should be able to push it a little bit. And I think I was only gone for about 45 minutes more than I was planning. And, that sucked. I'm just glad that the barber's chair was reclined a bit, so it alleviated the pressure. But just having to wait for him because he was running behind sucked. Anyway, that's my own personal stuff. But yeah, going back to just finding middle ground on stuff and being open to things that might make you uncomfortable. It's always good to have opposing viewpoints, like, in your wheelhouse. So, like, me personally, I follow a couple, like, hardcore MAGA influencers that are more on, like, the lower end of the spectrum. And it's fascinating to me. It's like, I'll be, like, looking through my feed and be like, oh my goodness, what are they doing? All these horrible things. They're firing these people. They're doing this. And then you flip on one of their stations and all the negative bullet points that the left has, those guys are like showing up and be like, look how awesome this is. Bah. And then it's like, whew, yeah, that's awesome. But that's what, I don't know. It makes it for a very interesting world right now. Because, like, they're all hyped on exposing corruption and stuff. And it's like, I hope a lot of them are getting the hints after that Epstein release that they've been saying that because they are the corrupt ones. The person that protests too much, usually trying to do it. I know I've talked about that in previous videos recently, and it's totally true. It's like almost all the time. What else can I talk about? It's been on my mind. I don't know. No, since I'm going to be linking that video to kind of like how or the mechanics involved in becoming idiocracy. That's been funny. It's like, I didn't see idiocracy until the first time Trump got in the office. So that was definitely that was a hard watch. And now I've watched it at least once a year ever since. And every time, yeah, that meme that's out there is totally right. It's like every time you watch it, it's like, oh, damn. And Musk with that chainsaw. I've never seen a better Camacho impression. And the fact that it wasn't an impression, that's just real life politics for Americans now. Whew. It'd be hilarious if they weren't fascist, racist pieces of shit. That's one thing I actually appreciate about the Chris Hedges one. He really goes into the fact that it's Trump has no ideology, so it's you can't really call him a racist. He just does not give a shit. All he's cared about is money and power. And since, he's in his 70s, he really doesn't give a shit about us. That's what scares me about the whole Putin thing, too. It's he's also, 70? And it's one thing I've learned about men and their pride and their egos. And, living a life unfulfilled. Eventually, you shit or get off the pot. And those two, unless they get Neuralinks, their time here is finite. So, it's a rather scary situation. Because, for me, it's I can sit here and reflect going, basically ever since my grandfather passed, I always thought, 60s, that's super old. That's around the time that you should be passing away. I didn't realize that I was pretty young at the time, but that's kind of what's influenced my way of thinking. So, seeing all these 70-something-year-olds in office running the country, running various countries. Really? That's weird. Don't make no sense. It's they could pass away any second. I think I want to go to the other side. And then call it, because I need to go take care of stuff. Yeah, idiocracy. Sad thing is, totally saw that starting in the 90s. Ouch, my balls is basically just jackass. And we've definitely been living in a very over-sexualized atmosphere in America and social media for a while. I mean, I've played around with the algorithm a bit with like various social media accounts to see like if I search certain things, what happens. And anytime the algorithm identifies me as a man who might be in his 30s or 40s, it's like every other thing in my search is just jiggly. Which is like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate it. But I was like, come on, man. Like, I haven't looked for that yet. It's like, it's such a distraction sometimes. Okay, I think I'm done for now. Hope you enjoyed my ramblings. I highly encourage everybody to go check out that interview. I'm going to watch a couple more of his interviews because very compelling. And yeah, practical, rational approach to actual history of our modern politics. So, hope you all enjoyed. Have a good day.